Hi and welcome to the second video in the Gatsby JS course, Project Setup. In this video we will get our project up and running and displaying a hello world message on the home page. To complete this video you will need to ensure that you have Node.js installed on your system if you don't already have it. There's a link to Node.js in the description, so please install that before continuing. Before we start coding, I'm going to quickly mention the Gatsby CLI. Gatsby has a CLI which can be used to spin up a new project really quickly, but we're not going to be using that today. Today we're going to do it from scratch. This way I can cover everything as we build it, rather than trying to explain everything the CLI spits out. So, let's begin. First, we need to create a directory for our application. I'm creating it with the name Portfolio Project, so I create a directory Portfolio Project, then cd into that directory, and then open that in your chosen IDE. So I'm going to open this in VS Code with the code.command. Just close that existing one and open that up. Once you are in your project's root directory, we need to open a terminal and we need to initialize npm. To do this, we can run the npm init --y flag, and the -y simply accepts all the default options rather than manually accepting them on each step. So you can see here it's just spit our package.json straight out. Next we can run the command to install our required dependencies. You can copy this from the description, so it will be npm install save react, react DOM and Gatsby. React and React DOM are for our React application, and the Gatsby framework is for the Gatsby functionality which we'll be hooking into during this course. Once they have installed, we need to install our dev dependencies. You can also copy the development dependencies from the description. So I'm just going to copy that now, come back to here. This may take a moment the first time as it's installing everything fresh. Perfect. Now the dependencies have installed, we can install the development dependencies. This one is a scary large import, but most of it is just for eslint and prettier config, with the exception of ESM and cross-env. Cross-env and ESM are used to ensure stability across different platforms such as Windows, macOS and Linux when we get to using things such as environment variables, but they will be in a future video. Now we have all our packages installed, we can set up our scripts. If I just remove this test one, as we won't be covering testing in this video. npm run start, we'll call our develop script, and our develop script will start the application. I'd split these out for clarity more than anything, so I'll write this out and then I'll explain what it's doing it once I've written it out. So here we're going to call cross-env, we're going to set the node options, and then we're going to have to escape these characters. So we do a back ESM, and then we'll escape that as well, and then we will run Gatsby develop. Perfect. Gatsby develop is a command we have access to from installing the Gatsby library, and this will package and run our application in development mode on port 8000. Next we need to do a slight bit of configuration on our eslint-config to get it all ticking with our application. We've already installed the dependencies when we installed our development dependencies. To do this, we simply extend our eslint-config from Wesbos's config which we installed earlier. So to do that, create a new entry here and put eslint-config, and then it creates the object for us. Then we say extends, and inside this I'm going to pass an array just in case we want to add more extends later on, but I think we'll just be using Wesbos during this course. Then I'm also going to add a rule in, and that rule will be for React prop types. Set that to 0. Basically we're disabling the prop type validation during this course, as we're not going to be covering prop types, so we don't want all the warnings and errors popping up in this problems console over here. Wesbos has kindly simplified this setup for us by doing the hard lifting, meaning we only need to extend from the one package and then we can get developing knowing all our eslint and prettier is configured. Now we have eslint set up and our scripts are ready, let's quickly throw in a git ignore with some rules in so we don't forget to do it later. So here I'm going to create a new file, .gitignore. I copied the ignore from the official Gatsby team for my Gatsby project, so grab that from the link in the description. Click open here, and then go to the raw, and just copy this content, and then drop that straight into your gitignore and save it. Now we have the foundation set up, we can start configuring Gatsby. The first file we're going to create is a Gatsby config file. In our root, create a Gatsby config.js file. This will define our site's metadata, plugins and other Gatsby related configuration. So first, let's export our default object. And this here is our Gatsby configuration. Now we have our settings object, we can add our site metadata to it. Anything we add here will be accessible to us throughout our application, so it's good for common pieces of data. For now, we're just going to add in a title and description. So in the title, just add your name. And for the description, just add your name's personal website and blog. Perfect. I'll cover how to access these in our application in a future video. Next, we are going to add the plugins declaration, and that's just going to be an array. Nothing is in here yet, but we'll use this to declare all of our Gatsby plugins going forward. Now we have our Gatsby configuration file in place, we need to create a few more Gatsby config files. So we need to create a Gatsby SSR, a Gatsby node, and a Gatsby browser file. So let's go ahead and create all of these files. So the first one is Gatsby SSR.js. The second one is a Gatsby node.js. And last but not least, Gatsby browser.js. All of these files let us hook into the Gatsby APIs. We won't be using these files straight away, but they will be covered in an upcoming video. For now, we'll put them in as placeholders. Now we have our configuration file set up, we can start fleshing out the application. I'll quickly run through creating the folder structure and then explain the basic structure and why it is structured this way. So first, we need to create a new source directory. Inside that source directory, we want to create a pages directory. And inside of that pages directory, we want to create an index.js file. And then we want to go back to the root, and we want to create one more folder, and we want to call that static. We will then grab a favicon to drop into that static folder. So if you go to the URL in the description, you can grab the favicon I use on my personal website. So then I'm going to save that, and I'm going to save it in my portfolio projects static directory. Perfect. So if I go back to that, I should now see that inside my static directory is the favicon. So why this structure? This structure is important. When we spin up our npm start command, which in turn runs our Gatsby develop command, it will first check all the Gatsby config files for any settings and instructions. Once it's done that, it will look for our source pages directory, and every file inside the pages directory will be a page in our application. So the index.js file's default export would be our home page. The static folder on root is a folder where all the contents will be pulled out on build and placed inside the root of our public directory. This will make much more sense when we see it running in a moment. So let's go back to our index.js file inside the pages directory and create our first React component. So here we want to import React from React, and then we want to create a default function. So export default function, and we'll call it homepage. We can name this function anything we want. Gatsby will know it's the homepage because it sits inside the index.js file inside the pages directory, which is reserved for the homepage. So inside here we want to return our component, and we'll just return a div with the text hello world in. So let's throw that inside a h1 for now. There you can see as I saved we got the braces placed automatically, so that means that eslint configuration is working. And there we have our default component. So let's get that running. If we run npm start, let's just clear that terminal out. If we run npm start in the root, it will run through building our application and serve it on port 8000. The first run may take a little bit of time, but you'll get a message once it's complete. Once you see that message, you can navigate to localhost 8000 in your browser and see your application. Here you can see it said my build has been successful, so now we can navigate to it in the browser. So if I go to localhost 8000 and refresh that page, I should see my hello world text. Perfect. And there we have our hello world application. But what did the Gatsby develop command actually do? So if we look back into our root directory, we can now see a public folder. This is our compiled application. Gatsby has run everything through it and generated all the scripts, HTML, and copied the contents of the static directory we created earlier straight into the root. So you can see our favicon.ico has gone straight into the root of the public folder. Anything else we place in the static directory will drop straight into the root here. It also comes with hot reloading. So if I make a change to my index.js file, the website should update like so. So if I write update 1 here and save it, you'll see the terminal spits out some more content and saying it's rebuilding. And then if I go back to Chrome, I'll have my update 1. Great. So in this video, we have covered the project dependencies, configured and set up the package.json and Gatsby configuration files. We've created a basic folder structure and coded our first page. So please join me in the next video so we can get everything in GitHub ready to continue development. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.